Something about this wedding feels wrong, and not in the way the writers want us to think. I'm not talking about the usual pre-wedding jitters. I'm not even talking about the kind of chaos that makes soap operas addictive. No, this feels deeper, structural, like we're watching a slow motion collision between love, ambition, reputation, and ego. And if you've been keeping up with Beyond the Gates, you already know exactly what I mean. Because Chelsea and Madison's upcoming wedding, it's no longer just a romantic milestone. It's a pressure cooker. Let's get this straight first. What actually happened? Before we dive into the emotional chaos, let's ground ourselves. Chelsea and Madison are preparing for their wedding, something that should feel celebratory, hopeful, stable. But instead, everything around them is unraveling. At the same time, Chelsea and Kat's company, Chelseakat, is on the brink of a major breakthrough. They've managed to secure a partnership with Fenmore's, which is not just big, it's transformative. This is the kind of deal that can elevate a brand from promising to powerful. But then right on cue, a scandal involving Madison erupts. And suddenly, everything is connected. The wedding, the company, the partnership, the public image, all of it. Now Kat is worried. Not emotionally, strategically. Chelsea, on the other hand, is standing her ground, defending Madison, refusing to back down. And just like that, we're back to something familiar. Chelsea versus Kat, again. The real tension isn't the scandal, it's the mindset. Let me say something that might sound controversial. The scandal itself is not the core problem here. It's how each character interprets it. Chelsea sees the situation as a matter of justice. To her, Madison is not at fault. The real culprit is Willow. Therefore, the solution is simple. Defend Madison, expose the truth, and move forward. Sounds logical, right? But here's the catch. Chelsea is thinking in a moral framework, not a business one. Kat's, on the other hand, is operating in reality. The kind of reality where perception matters more than truth, where social media doesn't care about nuance, where one scandal, fair or not, can poison a brand overnight. And this is where things get interesting. Because Kat isn't saying Madison is guilty. She's saying it doesn't matter. Let that sink in. Kat's fear isn't irrational. It's painfully realistic. We've seen this before, not just in fiction, but in real life. A brand builds trust for years and loses it in a week. A partnership forms on credibility and collapses under controversy. Kat understands this. She knows that Chelseakat is still fragile, that this deal with Fenmore's is not just an opportunity, it's a lifeline, and anything that threatens it must be handled with extreme caution. So when she suggests delaying the wedding, she's not attacking Madison. She's protecting the company. But here's the emotional twist. Chelsea doesn't hear it that way. To Chelsea, this feels like betrayal, like choosing business over love, like abandoning Madison when she needs support the most. And suddenly, what started as a strategic disagreement turns into a personal conflict. And this is not the first time. If you follow their journey, you know this pattern. Chelsea and Kat clash hard. They argue, they disagree, sometimes they push each other to the edge, but then they reconcile, and somehow every time they come back stronger, they grow. The company grows. The relationship deepens. So why does this time feel different? Because this time, the stakes are layered. In previous conflicts, the tension was mostly internal creative differences, leadership clashes, vision disagreements. This time, everything is intertwined. A romantic relationship, Chelsea and Madison. A business partnership, Chelseakat and Fenmore's. A public scandal, Madison's situation. A looming wedding, high visibility, high pressure. This isn't just one problem. It's a network of problems. And pulling one thread risks unraveling everything. Let's talk about Chelsea, because she's not wrong, but she's not right either. I understand Chelsea. I really do. Standing by someone you love, especially when you believe they're innocent, is not just admirable, it's necessary. And in a world where people are quick to judge, having someone who refuses to abandon you, that matters. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Chelsea is underestimating the consequences. She's treating this like a battle of right versus wrong. But in reality, It's a battle of impact versus intention. Madison may be innocent, but the damage, that's still real. The public doesn't wait for full context. They react instantly, emotionally, often unfairly. And Chelsea, whether she likes it or not, is tied to Madison, which means Chelseakat is tied to Madison, which means the business is now part of the scandal. This isn't about blame. It's about fallout. And Kat, she's thinking 3 steps ahead. Kat's perspective might seem cold, calculated, even harsh, but it's also necessary. She's asking the questions Chelsea refuses to. What happens if Fenmores pulls out? What happens if the brand image is damaged? What happens if sales drop? What happens if the company doesn't recover? Because here's the reality. The loss won't be Chelsea's alone. It will be shared. Kat will suffer too. The employees, the partners, the future they've built together, all of it is at risk. So when Kat pushes for caution, she's not being disloyal, she's being responsible. The real conflict, heart, strategy. At its core, this storyline is not about a scandal or a wedding. It's about a classic and brutal dilemma. Do you protect the person you love or the future you've built? And the show does something very smart here. It doesn't give us an easy answer because there isn't one. If Chelsea backs down, she risks hurting Madison. If she doesn't, she risks hurting the company. Either way, something breaks. And then there's Willow, the invisible catalyst. Let's not ignore the elephant in the room. Chelsea believes Willow is the real cause of everything. But here's what's fascinating. Willow doesn't even need to be present to create chaos. Her impact is already embedded in the narrative. She's the spark. But the fire, that's coming from Chelsea and Kat's reactions, which raises an interesting question. Is Willow really the villain or just the trigger? Because if one external event can destabilize Chelsea and Kat this much, maybe the foundation wasn't as stable as we thought. This is where I start to worry. Not because conflict is happening. Conflict is good, necessary, even exciting. But because of how fragile everything suddenly feels, for the first time, I'm not entirely sure they'll fix it. And that's new. That uncertainty, that's powerful storytelling. Could Anita be the solution? Let's talk about Anita. Because if there's one character who consistently brings clarity, it's her. She has this rare ability to untangle emotional knots without dismissing anyone's perspective. She doesn't choose sides, she reframes the situation. And right now, that's exactly what Chelsea and Kat need. Not someone to tell them who's right, but someone to help them see the bigger picture. Because both of them are right, and both of them are wrong at the same time. But here's a twist. What if they don't need saving? This might sound counterintuitive, but hear me out. What if this conflict is necessary? What if this is the moment that forces Chelsea and Kat to finally evolve? Because let's be honest, they've relied on reconciliation as a safety net for too long. Fight, break, fix, repeat. But growth doesn't come from repetition. It comes from disruption. Maybe this time they don't need Anita to fix things. Maybe they need to figure it out themselves. Messy, imperfect, real. The bigger theme, success always comes with a cost. Chelseakat is growing. That's undeniable. But growth isn't just about opportunities. It's about pressure, responsibility, trade-offs. And this storyline is highlighting something very real. The higher you climb, the harder the decisions become. You don't get to choose between good and bad. You choose between good and necessary, between loyalty and sustainability, between emotion and consequence. So where do I stand? If you're expecting me to pick a side, Chelsea or Kat, I won't, because that's too simple. And this situation is anything but simple. What I will say is this. Chelsea needs to widen her perspective. Kat needs to soften hers. And both of them need to remember why they started this journey together in the first place. Because if they lose that, no deal, no matter how big is worth it. Final thought. The wedding might go on. The deal might survive. The scandal might fade. But the real question is this. After all of this, will Chelsea and Kat still be the same team? Or are we watching the beginning of a shift that no one, not even them, can undo?